all for the kids. These cats done forgot what work is. They don't know.
Maximum effort.
We gonna rock, till we gonna fall, till we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. We gonna rock, till we gonna fall, till we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. X gon' give it to you. We gonna rock, till we gonna fall, till we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. We gonna rock, till we gonna fall, till we let it pop, don't let it go. X gon' give it to you, he gon' give it to you. X gon' give it to you.
Deadpool and Wolverine is for many people the Marvel Cinematic Universe's final attempt to resurrect its dying franchise. It is 2024's most anticipated movie by far, and I understand why. We all love these two titular characters. Deadpool is essentially Ryan Reynolds channeling his personality into a beloved character who swears a lot and delivers non-stop one-liners. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine started Marvel's empire over pop culture in the year 2000, so seeing them in a movie together is the wet dream of many nerds, myself included. Especially with Wolverine finally using his iconic yellow suit and mask, and the connections to the MCU bringing a lot of the theories about how Deadpool will interact with these characters that Marvel has built over decades. But are all these elements a recipe for success or disaster? From the very beginning, I feared that Disney and Kevin Feige's influence would work for the detriment of the film, and I have to say that sadly many of those fears were realized. Like, seriously, this story is more confusing than a drunk's ramblings. But I also think that the movie offers a lot to enjoy as a fan of these characters and this universe. So I want to go over the entire movie, focus on the things and characters that I enjoyed, a lot of the things I liked, I didn't like, some of the things that didn't make any sense, and just give my final thoughts and verdict on it, because it is a mixed bag. But by the end of the movie, you're going to understand my point of view, so prepare yourself also for a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, skip towards the end, but yeah, we're going to go into a lot of spoilers in this film. So buckle up your seatbelts, because you have been warned. So the movie opens with a very crude but strangely humorous scene. One that I half expected to be in this movie. So basically Deadpool is looking for the Wolverine of this universe. He's traveling across universes and he finds his grave that was at the end of Logan, and then that's where he is attacked by the TVA. This is the multiversal police introduced in Loki, which apparently controls every universe that has ever been a part of Marvel as a whole, including Fox's X-Men franchise. Deadpool then uses Wolverine's corpse to massacre the TVA. Now, there is something that I want to confess. I enjoyed this scene a lot. I think it goes really well with Deadpool as dark humor and as a character. And another thing that made me love it is that I'm not a fan of the TVA as a concept within Marvel, and I'm gonna go a little bit more into that later. I just think they're extremely goofy and lame, so seeing a bunch of these multiversal puppet masters being decimated by Deadpool just gave me a really big laugh at the theater. Also, I'm not the kind of person who's gonna go like, oh, they literally defiled the corpse of this character we've known for so many years. Like, Deadpool even makes a joke about that at some point. And this is a common theme throughout the movie where something totally insane happens, but we have our trusty friend Wade to explain why it is insane, and that's something that happens over and over. And it is honestly something that would never work without Ryan Reynolds at the helm of this film as Deadpool, because his jokes just land in most of the cases, and I just love the writing in that respect of the movie. After the intro, we are shown a brief scene of Deadpool in 2018 visiting the MCU, or as it's known officially, Earth 199999. Or wait, is it Earth 616?
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 199999.
Who's Doctor Strange?
Our universe is 838, and we've designated yours 616.
Oh.
To be honest, I don't even know, and I don't think Kevin Feige does either. Hey, I'm just an over-obsessive nerd that cares about consistency, not like that's important in a shared universe or anything. Anyways, next we are taken to the quote-unquote present, where the question is answered of where Deadpool has been this whole time. He now lives a normal life, living with blind Al as he somehow broke up with his girlfriend Vanessa. This might seem like a minor thing, but it bothered me a little, since this plotline neither adds or subtracts much from the rest of the story. But it seems extremely inconsistent with Wade and Vanessa's relationship that has been built over 2 movies. I feel like there was no point to this that say like, hey, relationships fail sometimes, I guess. At Wade's birthday, he receives a knock on the door from the TVA, which captures him and takes him to meet Paradox, who is leading an unauthorized operation to erase his timeline. But for some reason that is totally unclear, he decides to keep Deadpool. Also, this is the part where I rant about the TVA, so get ready. So I flat out do not like this concept. Like, I didn't like it in Loki, and I do not like it here. I just don't buy the idea that every single universe in this awesome network is controlled and overseen by these lame-looking dipshits in this retro-futuristic office. Hell, I prefer the concept of the Spider-Man already doing that in the animated movie Across the Spider-Verse, just overseeing the multiverse. But wait, don't they already do that? Or is it the Watcher? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is that these guys, have the ability to basically control the fate of gods, beings with unspeakable powers, and entire universes, which leads to the central plot of the movie. Paradox tells Wade, for nonsensical reasons, that he's going to destroy his universe with everybody he loves, because Wolverine died at the end of the movie Logan. The reason is that Logan is quote-unquote an anchor being, meaning a character that holds the universe together. And this honestly sounds like the stupidest fucking concept. Another one of those things pulled out of a movie's ass in order to advance the plot wherever it is needed to go. And this is the problem with these meta movies. For example, in Across the Spider-Verse, they introduced the concept of canon events and like these whole concepts that tie the Spider-Verse together. Another multiverse drivel to explain like some of the motivations of the characters. But honestly, I feel like this is more like a celebration of Spider-Man's character. Like, for example, we noticed these common things going through all of these characters, so we decided to come up with this concept, and it works within the story. And in my opinion, I feel like this doesn't land as well in Deadpool. Maybe it has to do with the live action aspects, or that this concept has already became stale in my point of view.
What do you think about multiple universes now, boys?
Yeah, they're pretty fucking stupid.
Also, remember how I talked about how this movie has a lot of inconsistencies with the timeline, where it so happens to be that, well, Logan dies in 2029. Does that mean that 11 years passed since Deadpool 2 and Deadpool 3? Or does this have to do with more time travel nonsense, for example in Spider-Man No Way Home, where heroes from the past are brought back into the present? I don't know, man. So anyways, this is where Deadpool escapes, and he crosses the multiverse in order to find another Wolverine to save his universe, because that makes total logical sense. So after a couple of universes and other funny cameos, he finds the Wolverine that follows us throughout the rest of the movie. He's a more comic-accurate Wolverine, all down to the yellow suit, and I think he was awesome. And even though he's a different version of the character, we get a couple of scenes that humanize him and give us his backstory. I think that it was totally worth it, as seeing this version of the character interacting with Wade is what ties this movie together. But anyways, after returning the Paradox, our two main characters are banished to the Shadow Realm, and this is where the main course begins. Now, Deadpool and Wolverine's adventure throughout the Void is where the majority of the movie happens. I liked a lot of the conversations, fight scenes, and banter between the two. As a comic book fan, this is what makes this movie great, and this is where I suspended all my disbelief and critical thinking and simply focused on enjoying the movie. Scenes like their initial fight and their conversation and subsequent fight in the Honda Civic were the reason these movies are made for. This reflects perfectly the dynamic and friendship between Reynolds and Jackman in real life, and it makes me want to see more of these characters together in future films. Now, one of the largest selling points of this movie are the cameos. Oh boy, we gotta talk about the cameos. You've probably already been spoiled, but over the course of the movie we see a lot of different characters, variants of Wolverine across the multiverse, including one played by Henry Cavill, the Hulk, Johnny Storm, the Old Juggernaut, Thor, Sabretooth, a large amount of Deadpools, including one voiced by Blake Lively, and another one voiced by Matthew Macfadyen, and several others that form part of the main team up in the movie. In other words, the movie is stacked for better or worse. For example, the Gambit that never existed also makes an appearance in this movie played by Channing Tatum. However, he made me glad that they never made that movie, because he sounds exactly like that one scene in 22 Jump Street, but stretched over an entire character.
He like the Mexican Wolverine? My name is Jeff.
He gave me big 10% on Rotten Tomatoes vibes, but honestly, this character is kind of played off as a joke, so in a way it's kind of justified. I don't even know, but I think it was funny. I like this character. But it was just weird seeing him on screen because it was like taken seriously but not taken seriously, so I was a little bit confused over his character. Jennifer Gardner's Elektra and Wesley Snipes as Blade are also back, which made me happy too. They play important roles in the story, but the strangest and most nonsensical cameo has to be Daphne Keane returning as X-23, since the only X-23 we have seen so far is the same character from Deadpool's universe. And the movie heavily implies that it is the same character, not an alternate version. So at the same time, the movie tells us that many of these characters are the same we knew and loved 20 years ago, but also play with the idea that the multiverse allows anyone and anything to be anywhere. Now, the main villain of the story is extremely interesting. Cassandra Nova is strangely intimidating, with powers that rival her twin brother Charles Xavier's. Well, one of the Charles. These timelines are really confusing. But her motivations are not entirely clear, because in the beginning, it is revealed that she's just been chilling in the Void, basically serving as a leader / dictator to all the characters that live here. And then when Deadpool and Wolverine arrive, she tries to kill them, and then they escape, obviously, and then they come back, but then she tries to kill them again. But then they defeat her, they disable her powers, and then she's ready to die. And she says she's going to kill him as soon as she gets the helmet off. She helps them get back to the real world, and that's when she decides, oh, I guess I want to kill everybody now. So she goes, escapes the Void, and then has this plan that comes out of nowhere that she basically wants to destroy every single timeline except for the Void for unknown reasons. So there was a bit of a back and forth with Cassandra. There's nothing really there that made me think that it ruined the character, just like a standard Marvel villain. She dies towards the end, so I guess it doesn't matter. That's the problem with all these villains. They basically like get introduced, they're super awesome, they get killed by the end, the heroes win, and then just forget about them forever. So yeah, at the end of the movie, Wolverine and Deadpool win, they have a bonding moment, everything gets resolved, and then they return to the Fox universe to live happily ever after. Obviously, this movie raises a metric fuck ton of questions about these characters' future, especially since according to this movie's timeline, it is set somewhere after 2029. But knowing Marvel, we all know they're gonna come back and play these roles until they're 90. So anyways, I'm gonna go now into my criticisms of the movie itself. One of my main problems with Deadpool and Wolverine is that it contains much of the same Marvel drivel we've been listening to over like the last 5 years, I guess. At a certain point, I felt like I was watching Quantumania all over again, but I guess this has to do more with the TVA than with other of the aspects of the movie. There is an overabundance of, oh, this happens because the multiverse allows it. The quantum fluctuations are affecting the MacGuffin machine of the universe stabilization that allows you to destroy universes, and you have to go activate it with the power of this and that. And I'm like, oh god, this is just the quantum stuff all over again. I feel like this is something that began with Infinity War and Endgame, but became much, much worse when Loki came out in 2021. The whole concept of the TVA was hard enough to understand as a nerd. I can't even imagine how mainstream audiences felt at these moments. And you can see how this movie has Kevin Feige's influence all over it by engaging in these concepts. The first two Deadpool movies were extremely fun with a simple premise. The Merc with a Mouth is a chaotic character that is connected to the X-Men franchise. It is raunchy and violent action comedy at its core, with a tendency to break the fourth wall. These are movies you can show to your dad and have a good laugh and a great time. It is not the same with this movie. It seems like nowadays, in order to watch one of these movies, you have to have a master's degree in Marvelology to understand what is going on or why a certain character shows up. Ever since Marvel introduced the concept of the multiverse, anything and everyone is allowed. And it is 10 times worse with Deadpool and Wolverine, because you do not only need knowledge from characters that appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Fox Universe, but from characters that appeared in 20 years ago, like in different kinds of movies like Elektra, Blade. But you also need knowledge about like the meta aspects of the MCU, such as like its low performance over the last couple of years. For example, the whole concept of the multiverse, like things like Gambit's character that are kind of strange. Like you would not get that if you don't know like the story behind that. There were times where Wade just made jokes about the state of the movie, about like some of these aspects, like fourth wall breaks. And I have to talk now about the fourth wall breaks. I think that Deadpool and Wolverine contains an excessive amount of them. Seriously, somebody has to count every single fourth wall break in this movie and then compare it with the first and second one, because I just felt it was like one after the other, just rapid fire. And I get it, I know that it's an intrinsic aspect of Deadpool's character. However, it just felt unnatural at times. For example, in the scene where the previous Marvel characters show up, it almost seems as if Deadpool serves the role of the intermediary between what goes on the screen and the confused audience. Channing Tatum would show up and he would be like, "Oh look, it's you, Gambit, from the movie that never got made due to production issues." Or, "Oh, it's Chris Evans, the Captain America. I'm so glad to see you. Oh wait, I guess you're Johnny Storm from 2005's Fantastic Four. Oh gee whiz." Or, "Look at that, it is Elioth from Loki Season 1 Episode 5. Wink wink." Now, I can hear the people in the comments typing away their angry responses at me criticizing the way fan service and fourth wall breaks were done in the film. But the thing is, I liked seeing these characters in the movie. As somebody who loves the Blade movies, grew up with the Fantastic Four films, and also knows the story of Channing Tatum's Gambit character, these characters brought a smile to my face. My point is about the overall massive universe that Disney has created becoming sort of a gatekeeper for mainstream audiences. I mean, like for a nerd, it's not that big of a deal, but I think it's going to become increasingly harder for audiences to understand it, and I feel like that has to factor in the quality of the film. Without this required knowledge, the movie is kind of an ugly mess, and it feels like Marvel's bread and butter is going to be like cameos, ensemble casts, and basically all these things instead of just telling a good story. And this in many ways confirmed a lot of the main fears I had about Deadpool and Wolverine. That you could feel Disney and Feige's sticky hands all over the final product, like focusing more on trying to tie this movie with the rest of their gigantic mess dump of like mix and match of characters, concepts, plot lines. And that's just kind of the vibe I got from it, rather than delivering a product that I can rewatch many times in the future. In many ways, it felt like watching a giant, high-budget episode of Rick and Morty. And I say that in the most pejorative way possible. This is the result of an abundance of dick jokes and pseudo-intellectual concepts such as the multiverse invading geek culture in the last decade.
Where's my Szechuan sauce? I'm Pickle Rick! My beloved Dum-Dum! I'm Pickle Rick!
I feel like this has grown so stale. I don't even enjoy Rick and Morty anymore. And it just felt like they were throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks. But at the end of the day, it's okay because it is a Deadpool movie. But in a strange way, the movie is aware of its flaws. It's as if a dumpster came to life and then tells you like how stinky it is while making perfectly timed jokes. But I feel like it's still enjoyable in a way, like in a strange, bizarre way. In a way, this is Deadpool's true superpower as a character. The meta commentary offers a template where no wrongdoing can be done because the movie is perfectly aware of its wrongs. At several points, he even makes jokes about the sad state of the MCU and of the multiverse concept as a whole, but at the same time, it does these things, so it just leaves me very confused. Spider-Man No Way Home is one of my favorite movies of all time. The sheer ecstasy that I felt at the movie theater when Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield appeared is something of a monumental accomplishment in the world of cinema. However, I have only rewatched that movie once. After the novelty of these characters wore off, I realized something, that without all the tricks and gimmicks that the MCU offers, the movie is quite dull. The plot makes no sense whatsoever, and I don't feel any desire to rewatch it, because I already know what happens. In contrast, I recently rewatched both Deadpool movies in preparation for this one, and I realized that even that they're not connected to any other films, they are still hella enjoyable. They're insanely rewatchable, and they don't bog you with all these new concepts that the strange third movie introduces. Sure, the second film introduced time travel with Cable, but it was done in a brief way that was easy to understand. It is a far cry from this one's multiversal machines, branching timelines, and all the bullshit you're required to know from the previous 50 Marvel films. So, it seems that for most of this video, I've done nothing but talk shit about Deadpool and Wolverine. And the question in everybody's mind is it actually a good movie? Did I enjoy the film? The short answer is yes, but with a big asterisk on top. I was honestly very confused on what kind of score to give this movie, all the way from low 30s to mid 70s, but upon careful consideration and reflection, I realized I'll give the movie an 82 out of 100. With all of its flaws and everything I mentioned, I still think the movie's a very fun time. It is a great way for nerds to just relax, have a good belly laugh with Deadpool's antics, sword jack point at all the cameos, and then go home to discuss the film online. As a fan of these characters, I enjoyed it. I like when Marvel delivers quality entertainment. I'm not gonna pull a Scorsese and say like, oh, we should all just watch A24 films and not watch any Fast and Furious or Marvel because it is just garbage and they're like amusement park rides or whatever. I think that is bullshit. I think all movies are enjoyable in their way and we should appreciate this kind of entertainment that is delivered, I guess. I had a blast when I suspended my disbelief, and given the amount of jokes and the way the movie flows, I think it has a lot of rewatchability value in the future. But anyways, those are all my thoughts on the film, so if you like this video, please hit that subscribe button right now. Go ahead, hit it right now. It's right there in the bottom. Thank you. Now stick around for future videos, and I'll see you guys next time.